Hello, hello, my friends. AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink. Welcome back to my face and my card making space and a couple of tea-themed cards. For those that have followed me for a long time, I have an entire series on my YouTube channel of like coffee-themed cards. No idea why I started it. It's just something fun. Dozens of videos in that playlist. I will post a link to it in the end screen at the very end of the video. There's a few tea-themed ones thrown in amongst it because really just warm drinks. That's all there is to it. They're nice for, doing little cards to include gift cards, things like that, or just if it's a tea-themed or coffee-themed or hot cocoa-themed set. Super cute. Stick it in the playlist. So anyway, tea-themed cards. I did some coloring with Altenew alcohol markers. For those that may have missed it, I did a live just the other day, like recently, just sharing my first impressions of them because I just got my hands on a couple sets more recently, and that was the first impression live stream. So I'll link that at the end screen as well. For the cards I made, I did more like actual coloring with them. I used my Buttercream. I did controlled splatter, which I've shown in a previous video, and why not? And yeah, I had a lot of fun. So, as always, everything I used is listed and linked in the description box below the video. My links are affiliate links. That just means that if you click on one of my links and end up placing an order, I do get a little kickback from that at no extra cost to you. That is what helps pay the bills and keeps the channel going. So everything used will be in the description box below. And yeah, that's all the housekeeping. Let's get into how I made these cards. Alrighty, so I am using, like, as my main products, first off is this Mini Delight stamp and die set from Altenew. This is the Afternoon Delights. It's got the little floral set with sentiments and then a little, like, teacup layering die set. And I also pulled out the Blooming Floral Swag press plates. Both of these, the tea set I think came out last month. I think it's part of the October release. Same with the Blooming Floral, might have been. I honestly am not sure. Again, I'll have links like I always do. And then I'm using the One Go solid sentiment strips, which I've used in a previous video. And to start off with, I've got the little Afternoon Delights stamp set and just the outline teacup wafer die just to give me sort of a visual of where I want to place my florals. And I have this A2 sized panel, so 4 1/4 by 5.5 inches of Simon Says Stamps smooth white 120 pound cardstock. And I'm going to stamp this floral with Simon's Intense Black ink, which is an alcohol marker friendly ink. And didn't press the entire image. So just put the lid back where it needed to go with the stamp wheel, and then repeated the process on the second one because like I normally do, I try to do more than one card because it's like if I've got all the supplies. This time I actually made both of them more different. Usually I just kind of get repetitive and we'll do kind of 2 for 1. But this time we're going to switch things up a bit. So, Altenew alcohol markers. Like I mentioned in the intro, I will post a link to my first impressions video. I did some comparisons or like talked about comparisons and whatnot in that video. And yeah, this is my first time like really coloring with them, this is my first time coloring with them on my preferred cardstock because this is the cardstock I prefer for alcohol markers. Everyone's got, their go-tos for their own coloring methods. They use what they like, they use their own inks, etc. This is what I personally like and what I've been using for years. So this is my go-to cardstock, my go-to ink. And then for me, with coloring with alcohol markers, I tend to go darkest to lightest. It's just what I'm comfortable with after all these years. It's more just kind of the lazy method. Because then I don't have to do as much. But you have more control if you go lightest to darkest. You can also build depth a little bit easier going lightest to darkest, in my opinion. But again, you guys, I'm lazy. It is what it is. So I did list the colors that I used because I was using multiple sets. I've only got 3 of the sets of the of Altenew's alcohol markers. And there are many sets available, but these are the 3 that I have. And I was kind of pulling colors from the different sets to do my coloring. I only filmed coloring this image. The other one I did the exact same way. I just used some of the different colors. And yeah, got the colors listed on the screen and what set they were from. And again, this is my first time like officially coloring with them. I'm very pleased with these. Do you need them if you've got Copics or Olos or, whatever set of alcohol markers that you genuinely like? No, you don't need them, Did I need them? No, I didn't need them either. Did I want them? Yep. And personally, because, as I've built up my supply of, Altenew inks, cardstocks, etc., that was for me a big bonus, is having markers in colors that coordinate specifically. Now, could I have done this with all the markers I already have, gone through and found colors that are similar? Probably. But I do love convenience. I do love that there's sets of 4 colors, in the same way they do their inks. So, yeah. Just explaining the thought process, Again, as always, we're all adults here. Choose what works for you, choose what appeals to you, and use what you got, You can do the exact same thing with any markers, and if you're not into alcohol markers, you can watercolor or anything like that. So, I did my coloring. Really just simple. I did the one in blues, and then I did the other one in the yellow shades that I had. And then I used the little die set, and I die cut various shades of Altenew's cardstock with the dies. And I decided I wanted to add like a pattern to the teacup. And to do that, that's where I'm going to use the Blooming Floral Swag press plate. I will post a link as well. I do have a playlist of videos I've done on the Butterpress, using the Butterpress, etc. And I'll post that in the end screen as well. I love my Butterpress. I love it. I love it so much. I don't know. It just scratches an itch for me. So, to line up everything, I just put my plate onto the Butterpress. And then I'd put a tiny little bit of adhesive on the back of my piece of cardstock that I want to press onto. And then I pressed the lid down to pick it up where it needed to be. And then I inked up the plate with Altenew Fresh Dye ink, which I've done this many times. I have been experimenting with all sorts of inks, and most inks will work with this. You just got to experiment, really. Altenew's inks work great. Like, look at that. Look at it. Love it. Love it. You can kind of see it even on screen for once. Sometimes it's hard to show. Like, it's, actually like pressed in. You could also, if like the Butterpress just does not appeal to you, you could actually just take the stamp set that I use, like the florals, and stamp that onto the teacup. You could do that, skip the whole, because I know for some, the Butterpress doesn't appeal to you. This is another thing that I needed it in my life, okay? I love it. I love playing with it. So, because I'm using just fresh dye inks and they're water-based, etc., I just wipe the plates off with a baby wipe. I don't have to use any special cleaners, anything like that. And I'm going to do this a second time. The first time I used Warm Sunshine ink on a light yellow cardstock, and then this time I used Iceberg ink. And both of these are going to lighten, because what I show right now is like the ink still wet, and you'll see by the end it softens quite a bit because the fresh dye inks do dry back and soften, and it's just gives it that little extra something, So after I'd pressed both of those pieces with that little plate, I assembled my little teacups. Super, super simple to assemble these. And I just used my craft tacky glue to build it up. And then it's even got a little wafer die for the little tea bag. Love it. So that I'm going to use my tweezers to hold that little wafer die, because the little like string portion is like tiny. And it's so cute. Like once it's adhered in place, it's like, okay, this is adorable. So yeah, and then just repeat the process on the second one, doing the exact same thing. So using the liquid glue gives me a little bit of wiggle room to just, shimmy things into place. So you'd hear just the darker portion, which is like the inside of the cup, and then the portion that I press. There's also detail on the actual cup portion, and then the little plate that's pressed in, like debossed. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but the dies themselves add that little detail. And then, yeah, you could stamp the cup. You could die cut it from pattern paper. That would look really cute too. So many options. That's another reason why I like making like tea and coffee themed cards. I was like, ooh, we can like decorate the cups. And again, if you guys watch my live streams, things like that, you see I've got all sorts of fun little cups that I use for tea, and I don't know, they bring me joy. So anywho, for my sentiments. Using the Butterpress again, I'm using the One Go Solid Sentiment Strips press plate. And last time I used this, I glimmer hot foiled the press plate. That's another reason why I love press plates, because press plates you can use as is, like how they are intended with the Butterpress inks and the Butterpress fancy cardstocks. You can use them with regular inks like this on regular cardstock, which is actually what I do the most. You can hot foil them, which is one of my favorite things to do with Butterpress plates, because they hot foil like a dream. FYI, always as a reminder, you cannot use hot foil plates in your Butterpress. They are not compatible. Hot foil plates are too thick. They'll wreck your Butterpress. I also personally don't use wafer dies in my Butterpress. I've been asked that, but a wafer die has a very thin cut edge, so I personally wouldn't. There probably maybe is a way around it if you really want a certain pattern, but honestly with wafer dies you can just use like embossing pad, like just in your die cut machine. You don't need the Butterpress for that. But yeah, I used darker shades of ink. It was melted butterscotch was that first one. Again, just Altenew fresh dye ink. And even with a plate like this is a large plate, like nearly A2 sized, and it's very solid. It's not an outline image. And I wasn't 100% certain when I was inking up the plate that I kind of thought I might have to ink it up and run it through twice to get, all the sentiments like that I wanted, full coverage. One pass. And again, this has to do with like the Altenew inks soften, smooth out, and, as they dry back. And yeah, both of these, I did it in one pass. I'm again just using that same 120-pound cardstock. So I don't get the real letterpress effect when you're using just regular cardstock, that pressed in texture, but I don't care. I don't care. It works so well. It just makes me happy. So I did that with both of these colors, and then I used the coordinating die set to die cut these. And I am genuinely hoping that Altenew will come out with more plates in the same orientation, just different phrases, more sentiments, so you can get more use out of the die set, etc. Like, love it. I love being able to do like a ton of sentiments at once like this and a variety, and then die cut them all at once. Love it. Absolutely love it. So pressed them, die cut them, and then all the extra ones I just put in the packaging with the press plate and dies. So next time I go to use it, I've got like a literal pile of sentiments all ready to go. So after I did all of that, set everything aside, and then I pulled out this Tim Holtz paper cutter. I showed this. I used to do this a lot way back in the day with my little Fiskars cutter, which I kept that too. I haven't got rid of it. For this, you do need a cutter like this that has like the little slider arm. Like I could not do this with like my guillotine because I'm only cutting selectively. And I do like with this Tim Holtz one, it's got the very sharp little arrows on all four sides of the cutting portion to show where the blade is. And I cut right up to the florals from the top and the bottom there. And then I used a pencil to mark that one little area there in between because you can't see it with the cutting blade in the way, so that I could cut another straight line. Because this way I've got my straight lines along the edge, and then I'm going to fussy cut around the portions of these florals that are hanging off the edge, so that it's going to kind of create like an overhang sort of effect that I'm going to back with some pattern paper. So I did the exact same thing. I just used the cutter to cut all the way up to the edge of the florals along the top and the bottom. Used a pencil to mark that little center area so I could use that as my guide to just cut a straight line right in there. And then I can go in with my scissors and just snip out the remaining little bits and fussy cut just around just these edges. So this didn't take very long at all. So worked my way around this little bit of the edges of the florals, just like so. And then snipped out any little bits there, and then finished that little bit of fussy cutting. And then I just repeated the exact same thing on that second piece. So I've got just a, like I said, it was originally A2 sized, and then now it's just slightly shorter, or like narrower, I guess. And then for the inside of my card, I'm going to use that floral on the inside, and decided to just like line it up kind of straight and stamp it right in the center of the inside of my card base. My card base is going to be a top folding A2 white note card, so 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I lined up the floral, and on the one card I stamped it with golden honeycomb ink, wiped off the stamp, and then on the second card base I'm going to stamp the inside with the icy water shade of ink. So just light inks so that I can easily, write over it. But it brings that pretty floral pattern to the inside of my cards. So lined up the second card base and then did the exact same thing, this time with that icy water shade. So ink that up, stamp that onto the inside, and then I'm going to use a couple of the sentiment strips that I had pressed. I'm going to adhere those to the insides of my card bases. So I've got those stamped, and then before I get to like adhering everything, I also wanted to stamp a couple sentiments from the little Afternoon Delights stamp set. So lined up sentiments just right, they're going to kind of line up like right under the floral and right above the teacup. And those ones I'm going to ink up with those same shades of ink that I used on the inside of the card. So I used golden honeycomb for this sentiment, and then lined up the second card front, lined up another sentiment, and I was just using like the teacup as like a guide. So it's like, okay, the teacup's going to go here. I can tuck the sentiment like right in there. So I get that lined up, and then this one I'll ink up and stamp with that icy water ink. So got that stamped just like so. There we go. So now I can adhere the sentiments that I'd chosen to put on the inside of the cards. One's going to be a like thank you card, and then one is going to be a birthday card. So I had chosen my sentiments, adhered them to the inside with craft tacky glue. And then for my card fronts, I decided to also add some baker's twine. So as well as pattern paper, I pulled out some of my all-time favorite go-to black and white striped pattern paper that I've used off and on for a million years. So I adhered just a strip of that to the card front. And then once that's adhered into place, then I'm going to add some baker's twine. So I've got like my card front figured out here, and then I'm going to wrap some baker's twine around the card front. And then, as always, reverse tweezers for the win. So I start my little knot, use the reverse tweezers to pinch that closed, make my bow, fiddle with it, get it the way I want it, pull it tight, remove the tweezers, pull it tight again. And this time, for whatever reason with both cards, these bows came together perfectly. It doesn't always work like that, There's many times I'll like just delete it from editing, me sitting and fiddling for the longest time, because baker's twine especially can be annoying. It's twisted fibers, and sometimes it's just depends on the day. Depends on the day and depends on my mood. But some days it just doesn't work. But for whatever reason, both of these were perfect. I was kind of surprised. So anyway, got my little bows made. And then to adhere the card fronts, I just cut down a couple pieces of like, I've got this like little pile of random, very thick cardstock that I don't use for anything. It doesn't work for literally for anything. It doesn't work for blending or stamping or anything. It's generally kind of garbage, other than it's thick. So I use it sometimes to build a bit of dimension instead of foam tape. But foam tape works great too. I show that in a bajillion videos. But I left a gap between the pieces for the baker's twine, and then adhered these card fronts to the card bases, and then controlled splatter. This was a little trick I picked up from Carly T. Yeah, I will link to her Instagram in the description box below the video, because I never in a million years would have thought of this on my own. You guys know I love just getting that fan brush loaded right up with 5 different products, and just splattering the heck out of things. That's my jam. But sometimes there's something to be said about, being a little controlling with it. It kind of works. And with a card like this, I decided I didn't want to just add a ton. So I just used a black marker. And yeah, She's done that in her videos, and or like on her Instagram, she does much more clean and simple cards, and they're so nice. And I love it. I love it. So I just draw on. So if you are like intimidated by splatter, or you've done something and you don't want to risk like wrecking, you know, all the coloring you did or whatever, but you want to add a little bit of splatter, it's like grab a marker. You can just draw it on. Who'd have thunk? You know I wouldn't have. So I just randomly drew it on here and there wherever I thought it would, you know, look nice. Made some larger, made some smaller, little dots, little splatter. Love it. So once that was drawn on, I can like finish assembling these cards. So I popped up the little teacups with just some thin foam squares. Again, just give them just a smidge of dimension. So pop those into place. And then those sentiment strips I wanted to add as well. And I originally was going to kind of like hover them, like float them over top of the teacups, but I really didn't want to cover up that pattern that I had pressed into them because it's super cute. So instead, I am going to adhere those strips like right below, almost as if like the teacup's kind of sitting on top of it. So I'm going to adhere that into place with more Craft Tacky glue. And then my final little bit of embellishment is these mother of pearl gem sparkles from Altenew. They're just, again, just pretty. Adds just a little hint of bling, you know, nothing too crazy. So these are self-adhesive, so you just peel and stick. Love it. So stuck those into place onto these cards, and once I was happy with the layout on the first one, as always, copy that in the second one. So still very similar, but, you know, mixed it up with the different colors you use, things like that. So got those stuck into place, and then once these are adhered, these cards are complete. So we've got florals and alcohol marker coloring and controlled splatter and better pressing and, you know, die cutting, all the things. Ooh, hot foiling that better press plate onto the teacups, that would have looked amazing too. Just more food for thought. Anyway, like I mentioned in the beginning, I'll have links to all of the things in the description box below the video. I will post the links to those different like videos and playlists that I was talking about. I will have those in the end screen at the very end of the video, so you can check those out if you are interested. As always, thank you all so very much for hanging out with me today, for thumbs upping and commenting. It helps a ton, and I very much appreciate it. Subscribe if you haven't. I'd love to have you. And I'll see you all very soon in another video. Bye. Thank you so much to my amazing Patreon supporters. For anyone that might be interested in joining my Patreon community and supporting me, the link to my Patreon is in the description box below the video. For everyone else, as always, thank you all so much for taking the time to watch my videos, for thumbs upping, commenting, subscribe if you haven't, I'd love to have you. And here's a couple other videos for you to check out in case you missed them. Bye!